Hey everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to Rebecca Minnick. There's on that side, I think. And Baby's Disc Golf Adventures. Uh, how are you doing, Rebecca?
Fantastic. Just got back actually a couple minutes ago because kind of on a little bit of a time crunch. Even got my putting in for the day. Today is day 250
Oh,
for putting every single day.
big golf.
But yeah, I went to actually a course you got to play while you were here, and I took my parents disc golfing for the first time. Well, my dad, it's his first time. My mom's played with me one other time, and they both did really well, especially for
Nice.
my dad's first time. So I gave them a bunch of, like pretty beginner friendly flippy discs, and they did really well.
That is awesome. And I got to meet them while I was there, so that was really cool.
Yes. Oh, we lost you there for a second.
Uh, you don't see me?
No, I do not. It was just a second. It like went out. Actually,
Hmm.
the reason why I have like my first ever you see this pretty beautiful French braid. It's
Uh-huh.
from my mom. She
Oh,
gave
that's
me a nice
awesome.
one. Yeah. Hello, hi Chris. Yes, 250 is very nifty. I think that was Todd. Um, yeah, it's very cool. I'm glad my parents are able to be here. Pretty much you left and then they came right away, and then we went to the tournament this weekend and then came back, and they actually stayed here over the weekend while we were gone too. So yeah, it's been very busy, a very busy few weeks,
Hmm.
even though I'm not at the Texas swing this year, which I have been the last 2 years. So this is my first year not being on the Disc Golf Pro Tour Texas swing. Although I've never done Waco either years. I've tried to get into it both years, but I was never able to get to it. Last year, I think I would have been able to get in, but they didn't let me know in time. And so I can't drive 16, 20. Well, it would have been more like 20 plus hours away, on short notice.
Hmm. So
So
what?
yeah.
So 250 consecutive days. Uh, listen, I know we have a plan, but I must address this. What really got you started on that daily putting? Because daily putting helps a ton, but I want to hear what got you on that.
So it's pretty cool how it started because the reason I started it was because of Amateur Worlds. And I knew that before that point, I really wanted to start putting every day for like 2 or 3 weeks beforehand and kind of hone in on my putting because putting was definitely more of a problem area in my disc golf game. And I've worked on it over the years for sure, but definitely nothing extremely consistent. And so before Am Worlds, I just decided that I was going to putt every single day. And I started it, and then by the time it was Am Worlds, I think for the doubles event, it was like day 25 or something like that. So then after Am Worlds happened, which was kind of a disaster and not good for me, at least in the place that I'm at, it wasn't very good for me. But one really amazing thing that I took from that was the putting every day. And it was just sort of like, hey, I've gotten this far and I've putted every single day, which I'd never done before. So it just became like, well, why miss now? I may as well keep going. And another very important factor, yes, Acebabieee, hashtag Acebabieee putting challenge. Let's go. Join us. Join us. Nikki and I are doing it. And I know that Chris, I think from Old Men's Disc Golf, is going to join us. Chuck might kind of join us. I think Luke Glidon might join us. Daryl might join us. So,
I,
we have
I
a
have been putting
lot of
every day.
people that are like, we're going to join you soon. So we'll have a whole group of Acebabieee putting challenge um, group peoples, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, so one other factor that was a part of me doing that was actually something that Madison Walker told me after I played, I believe it was the Des Moines Challenge. So the Des Moines Challenge, I think, was my last Disc Golf Pro Tour event before AM Worlds. And like I'd played the round with her, and then afterwards we were just kind of talking, and had a really good conversation with her, and she just made some comment sort of passing by of like, yeah, like it's really important or valuable to like be able to putt every day or something like that. And so that kind of also was a part of my decision in it, because I don't know, it just sort of stuck out, and I was like, yeah, you know, if I want to be the best, or if I want to learn to be a really good putter, then I need to be serious about it, you know, and not just putt 2 or 3 times a week one week and then not putt it all the next week,
Mhm.
and really not finding that consistency. So it's been such an interesting journey, and I'd actually like to have one podcast that we do that all I talk about is the putting, you know, and because I've learned so many different things from it. It's really like way too much to put into a podcast with anything else. And I'd also like to start making some videos, and even some, you know, like maybe training or tutorial type videos of just my process and different things that I've gone over. There's no way that I'm going to be able to remember everything, because so much has happened in 250 days. I mean, every single day I putt, I change something or I tweak something. Every single day there's always something I'm like, okay, does my hand feel right? Does my, you know, like there have been times where I focused a lot more on my body, or on my feet, on my knees, on my legs, on the position of my body to the basket. So many different things, like where I'm putting the disc on my body in relation to the basket, if I'm doing a left side, right side, if I'm going from down to up, or more, you know, more chest level to straight to the basket, more of a spin putt or push putt or combination, what balance, like what percentage is that? um how I'm releasing the disc, am I flicking my fingers really well, making sure that I'm following through with my hands, um all the way afterwards, you know, because you don't want to stop your hand here as soon as you putt. You want it to keep going all the way through. So there's so many different things to think about when you're putting. And I've actually had multiple people recently reach out to me and say, hey, can I get like putting tips? I'm having problems with my putting. And, you know, and I don't know anything about their putting, so I can't really, you know, help them. And then I'll be like, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about what's happening in your putt, and, you know, maybe I can get a video from them so I can help a little bit more. um and another thing about like putting is that there are a lot of different ways to do it right or do it well, you know. Sometimes it has more to do with what feels good, what feels right. And then there's also a balance of that, and just some form things that people do that just don't really work, you know. So so that can be helpful to maybe see another eye. But hopefully at some point I can put together kind of a more comprehensive list of all the different things you can think about. So if someone is like, man, I'm working on my putt a lot and it's just not going well, it's my accuracy is off, or it's not, you know, I'm essentially, they're doing everything they know to do to try to fix and work on their putt, but it's still just not working out. Then this would kind of be a list of, okay, I can try that, I can try this, I can, oh, I didn't think about that, I can try that. And that can be really helpful. So that was kind of a long answer, but it's much shorter than if I went into way more details into the realm of putting.
I'll tell you this. I was talking to Andy when I was there, we were talking about the putting challenge, and he was like, "Oh, through the I guess what was that, like 240 some days?" And he was like, "Oh, she's done all kinds of different things in that time."
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, going lower from the hips, bring it up a little higher, different positions." And I was like, "All right, cool. See, that's awesome."
I
And
even now will switch between a couple different things that I think are sometimes working a little bit better. Um, and I'll change it up. Like I have where I'll kind of aim with my left hand towards the basket and then putt.
mhm,
Sometimes that helps me focus more. It also can help with follow through. It also can help with distance and where you need to release the disc. So that can help with multiple things. But sometimes I just feel like I don't really need to do it. So I have more of that like power and release better without needing to do that. But
Mhm.
sometimes I'll switch between the two because maybe one day I'm a little less confident or whatever. So I'd say more frequently I do it with the aim, because I found that that does kind of bring certain things together, and focus. Like I've even tried things with, you know how you can stare at something from far away and you can bring it in and out of focus?
Mhm.
I will literally at times bring the basket out of focus and in focus right before I putt. And I've tried that and it's even helped some. You know, there are just so many different things that you can try, and that if you haven't tried, you haven't tried, and that's no surprise. But it's, yeah, so many different things. What was the comment though you just saw? I didn't get to see that one.
I'll come back to that in 1 second. But one of the things you just said is as we were playing, I've noticed that a lot. That left hand getting out in front
Yeah.
and you come through, basically almost replacing hands. And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah. Todd asked, "What's involved with the putting challenge? I could use my disc catcher."
Nice. Okay, so you don't even need a basket technically. Like if you have
Yep.
a basket, that's better, but you could even do something as simple as have a spot on the couch that you're aiming towards, or a different target anywhere, that you don't mind throwing a disc at. But yes, a basket is obviously more ideal. But really, the only requirements is that you do it every day, and we just want you to take either a picture, and like it's nice if you want to take a picture and take video, but you don't have to. You could just take a picture. It's nice to kind of have a selfie of people, but you don't even have to take a picture of yourself if you're like, oh man, I don't really want to take a picture of myself. Or you could change it up. One day you take a picture of like a little board that says day 10,
Mhm.
and the next day you take a selfie with it or with a putter, or you just take a picture of the basket or whatever. And, just keep track of what day it is for yourself, obviously, and kind of let us know, because that's encouraging to everybody in the group.
Yep.
Like it's been so, so, so cool for me to have Nikki be doing this putting challenge with me. And she's over day 40. Like I think she's on day 42 or 43, maybe even 44 at this point. So it's hard to believe that she's done that many days, but it's been super cool and encouraging. And we've both shared each other's posts, like our stories on Instagram. And it's been a huge encouragement and motivator for both of us to know that there's another person putting every day. So we definitely have been, saying this the whole time, like, please join us if you want to. It really doesn't require a lot, just that you putt any amount of time. There's no specific requirement. Like, you come up with what it is that you want to do. What
Mhm.
I do normally, like if I'm putting inside, then I have 9 putters and I do them 3 3 3, and I go from different locations for each putt. Usually I start at a longer distance. I usually end with a couple straddle putts and then finally a regular putt. um, and I have to make all 9 of them before I quit. I have changed it slightly to where if it's a really solid, good putt, and I know that it would stay in pretty much every basket, then I'll still count it sometimes. Say if I've just been going for a really long time and my body is super fatigued. So sometimes you need to listen to your body, because there's been times when I've just gotten kind of frustrated and just exhausted, because maybe I've been putting for like 45 minutes, an hour or something. My back is hurting, whatever. And I still haven't made those 9 putts. So there have been times where I've been like, I'm just going to make some really, really short, easy putts today just to finish the day. I've done my work. My body's kind of fatigued and exhausted. It needs the rest. Let me just get some nice, confident, easy putts in and end the session. So there's room for like working it out. You don't have to necessarily have the most strict, rigid, every single time I have to do exactly this. Like maybe have a plan and then see how that goes and change it if you need to.
Yep.
I've done that a lot of times. And then what I do for when I'm putting outside, like before a tournament round, or if I have a casual round and I get my putting practice in at a casual round, is I have 6 discs, and I'll usually do 2 2 2. And when I'm putting normally, I always putt with like 2 discs in hand, usually. So that's kind of why I don't mind having multiple discs in my hand, because that's how I putt in tournament rounds as well. And then I'll just make 6 discs from different locations, and that just makes more sense because it's a lot. It can be a lot more difficult when you're outside. You're not really used to the distances. There can be more wind and stuff like that. It's obviously also usually more valuable practice because you're in more similar to real conditions, whereas when I'm putting in my living room there isn't any wind. But I will say the one thing, and Daryl has learned this, the one thing that actually is much more difficult about putting in my living room is that there's a very low ceiling. So if you get
Yes.
far back to even
Yeah.
like 20-25 feet, it's like you're putting from circle 2 because you really have to, like, you really have to get that power on it. You really have to like put the disc into the basket, into the chains, in order for it to make it there, because it's such a low ceiling. So it makes it tough.
Yeah. If you
What
go
what
high
are your
there,
thoughts about that?
if you go high there, you're hitting the ceiling fan.
Yes,
You don't want to do that.
I have actually broken one of the light fixtures on the fan nearest to the basket. I hit it one time and it just shattered.
Oh,
So
yeah. I hit the fan itself one time. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna scoot in a little, and it feels so
yeah,
much further when you get just outside of about 25 feet in that living room. It feels like it's a long ways.
it really does. Yeah, Daryl was like, "Are you sure this isn't circle 2?" And I'm like, "I'm sure because I measured it multiple times, because also when I'm there looking at it, I'm like, this has to be circle 2, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
just it's like you have a three-way Mando."
Yeah. And it's really fun actually. You can make a game out of it. You just get it there, and at the end of the day, what it is that you're getting practice every day from putting, because that's where you can lose really the most strokes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're just try to get out there and putt as much as you can, definitely do that.
And we did make a game out of it. We had
Yeah.
a live YouTube
Uh-huh.
session, and then we also had another day where we recorded and had a nice fun game. I haven't gotten to post it yet, but it'll be up there eventually, I assume. I'm very behind on most of my putting videos, so they're coming up. I just posted ones from like 20 days ago.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, let's now to the meat of the podcast. Well, almost the meat. What's that behind you?
Okay, so this is my massive giveaway. Here, I'll like
There is so much stuff there, and
so much stuff.
I really should have taken that one disc. I don't know why I did. That's Saint Pro. I want that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that one is.
It is
I
beautiful.
love
So
how
everyone
this
wins.
is so pretty.
Yeah.
I like this one. This one's the verdict. Yeah, the
Mhm.
verdict. But it's like this icy
That is beautiful.
halo. Super pretty. Yeah, there's a lot of awesome discs. There's the Berg, which is a fantastic disc. The Roadrunner. There's the Mustang from Mint Disc, which is just, I love the Mustang. There's
That is
all
a
of the Neptune
beautiful.
discs. Um, yeah, I have there's a lot of cool discs, and then just, the whole set to this. It's this. It has the matching shirt, the matching um, towel, and some orange sunglasses to go with it. So there's just a lot of different really cool things. And we recently had some additions to the giveaway, which is like, let me go grab one of these,
Yeah,
which
those
is like
really really nice.
Team Grundy tie dye has 4 towels that he donated, so each person is going to get 2 of these towels. These are really awesome. We got some patches and stickers from Old Men Disc Golf. They created this they have a really cool story. If you see my post that I had, that I talk about their stuff, then I put their whole story kind of in the caption. It's really cool. They're veterans, so really awesome. And then Mooglee Dyes is donating to dye custom, like you get to design essentially, you know, within reason, say, hey, I want this color, I kind of want like this design, have this idea, and he'll work with you and create your own personalized, beautiful one of a kind discs in, you know,
Mhm.
pretty much whatever disc you want it in. So,
And if you
and then
want,
I'm actually going to be getting some things from Rebecca from Carbella Bags, I think is what her name is, but she does a lot of those really pretty bags, and we got one in the players pack for US Women's last year. I actually had my mom and dad use that bag today when we played. So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
lots of really cool things, and even some more things coming. And I'm getting pretty close to. So everybody's been asking me like, okay, when's the end of it? So the end of it is once I reach 6,000 followers, which I am really close to 6,000. It's probably about like 30 more followers. It'll be a week after that point, and then I will do the giveaway. And I'm going to have to do a lot of work in between that week because I don't exactly know how I'm going to compile everything. So I think I'm actually going to have to do it manually with like an Excel file or something. So that's going to be fun. But we'll definitely make sure it's fair, and I'll calculate all of the entries you guys have, because people can have 100 and I think like 70 entries just from extra entry things, like by following Mooglee Dyes, following other things. Like those are all extra. You don't have to do that for the giveaway, but it gives you a lot of extra entries. And then for every comment you do of a person, that's 3 entries a piece. So you could get like, 300, 400 more entries if you wanted. So yeah, go to Instagram, check it out. I have, I think, 3 posts at this point about the giveaway. The first post is like the main post, and then I've added more stuff and then added more stuff to it. So, and I'll probably have another one here in another couple days too. So
So every wins. Send me the Roadrunner and the Saint Pro. Todd actually did say this. He sets up at a local soccer field and he putts from various distances and around obstacles. That's what you do.
Nice.
Because that, especially the obstacles, really simulates like a tree in the way or shrubs or something in the way. So that's awesome. That's how you do the Acebabieee putting challenge. All right,
That is a good way to do it.
Now let's get into the meat of the podcast.
Yes.
I had to mention that giveaway. So definitely go to Instagram and definitely get up for that. So yeah, definitely follow her. Follow her also on her YouTube channel as well. All right,
Yes.
now let's do the 2024 recap, and then we'll start getting into the 2025 season as to what we're doing. So start off with 2024.
So I'll really quickly just kind of give a quick recap of kind of what we're trying to get into today, so you know what's happening, and then Daryl will add anything else that he has to it. But we're going to do that 2024 recap first. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about like navigating depression and other emotional things throughout touring, because I experienced that a lot last year. So I think it's super important of a thing to be able to talk about openly and to encourage others as they're going through it, and to be able to know that there are healthy ways to manage and navigate depression and other mental health issues that come up. So I'll talk about that a little bit in my own experience and journey with that. And then also plans for 2025, and kind of how a lot of what happened in 2024 impacted this year's plans as it relates to disc golf and life in general and stuff. And then the plans for this year, the 2025 season, because I haven't really talked about that. I haven't really made any posts about it either. So you're going to hear it first time on the Simply Incredible Disc Golf Acebabiee's Adventure podcast. And then next, I'll talk a little bit about the tournaments from this year, although may not get into a ton of detail with that, just because I'm sure we're already going to be getting up to time very quickly with all this stuff. We may even need to cut it halfway short and then just have another one next week, because we are going to try to kind of keep these podcasts closer to an hour moving forward. I know we're terrible at that, but we're going to try to do a better job.
Andy, if you're watching, don't laugh. We're really going to try.
We are really gonna try. And then throw down the mountain, which was my tournament this past weekend. A lot of good things that came from that. And then what's next? So we'll get into it. Nice. All right, so 2024 recap. I'm trying to think, where exactly did we leave off last year? We
I
wanted
know we
to
talked
do
worlds.
2024
Worlds might
recap
have been the
at
last
the
thing
end
we
of last year, but it didn't end up working out because a lot of things came up on your end and it just didn't ever happen. So do you remember kind of what we were at last? I don't even know. Did we even have a podcast that we went? I don't even think we went over pro like Am Worlds or Pro Worlds even.
I
Did
think
we?
that's the last thing I think we actually did do
We
Am Worlds.
did.
Worlds. I think that's the last one we did. Let's see.
Okay.
But I'm
I
pretty sure we
was
did
that
do
the one. Yeah, I think maybe that was the one that I made that whole huge notes document that I had all of the bullets with like 100 items of things to
yeah.
like catch up on, and then we definitely didn't like quite catch up on that.
Yeah.
It's such a me thing to do. Um, Anyway, so yeah, so
Yes,
I'll
we did
just
do
do a
that.
really
We did
broad
do that.
overview of the last of that, and then kind of what the last tournaments are. I'm going to use my handy dandy other phone to help me a little bit with that. We'll go to 2024. So right shortly before Amateur Worlds, I started the what is now named the Acebabieee Putting Challenge, which is a daily putting challenge. The only requirement is to putt every single day. And ideally, you could record yourself every day, which is what Nikki and I are doing. We're actually recording ourselves every day putting, but you don't have to. And I always take pictures as well too, but you know, whatever you want to do, pictures, stuff like that. Then I had Amateur Worlds. I felt really good actually going into Amateur Worlds, but the first day did not go very well, and yeah, it was kind of rough. So it ended up being, I kept it together as best I can and had as much fun as I could given the disappointment and everything that had happened, but it was definitely kind of rough. I did make it in the final day, but I think I had the worst round of anyone on the final day, and so in fact, it was my worst round in like 2 years. So ended up going down to the last place of the people that made it in the final day, which was like 33rd or 30 something. So that was rough, and then right after that, it was to head straight to Pro Worlds. And so here I kind of just bombed it and did not do very well at Am Worlds. And so a lot of the feelings are feelings of not belonging, imposter syndrome. You're like, man, I don't like, I couldn't even cut it at Am Worlds, and now I'm going to Pro Worlds. It was a lot. There was a lot of discouragement and kind of like, okay, what am I doing? But I was like, but I'm gonna push through. I'm gonna go to this tournament, do my best. And then I had the worst driving yips. I think I would definitely call it the yips. I'm very hesitant to call anything the yips, but I'm pretty sure it definitely was that. And it was with my backhand, and my backhand was something that I had really been working hard to build back up, because since like surgery and like the cancer removal and all of that stuff, I just it really took so much away from me in terms of my distance, my power, my form. Even before that point, because I was in so much pain, I lost a lot of form because I was compensating for the pain that I was going through. And so I was losing technique, I was losing form without really even realizing it until, after a certain amount of time. I just, even before I had the surgery, I had lost a lot of my backhand. So getting that back has been and continues to be probably the biggest hurdle I've faced getting back into disc golf. And I think a part of what makes it more challenging is the fact that I was super happy with my backhand. I really liked it. I was getting close to where, my goals for the next year was reach 400 feet with the backhand,
Mhm.
and yet the last couple of years I've struggled to even get to 300 feet. So then on top of that, not only losing all of that power and not having my form well, and even kind of knowing some of the things that I need to do because I'm a form nerd and so I can see it, but still not really being able to figure that out. And especially in tournament rounds, which is just very different, you know, because sometimes your body just doesn't want to do what you've trained it to do in certain situations,
Yep.
you know. And so that's why I kind of say I did have the yips. And what I had the yips in was just like grip locking hardcore on some discs. And
Yeah.
Daryl even saw it, I think, on one of my rounds. I was, you know, trying to go this direction. It went like 90 degrees almost in the wrong direction. And I proceeded for the next five. Like, I was like, okay, we'll just try to forget this, you know, move forward, whatever, go on. And the next like 4 or 5 backhands, all of them went exactly the same until I essentially had to just start flicking, even on holes that it really didn't make a whole lot of sense to throw the flick, because it was disastrous. Because we're talking the worst course ever to not have a backhand and to not be throwing well, because there's OB everywhere. And it is so punishing. And so this was at Ivy Hills, was it? Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Anyway, so that's a big part. Like, that all kind of plays into the depression and stuff that I was going on. It's not the reason for it though. The depression was started, it wasn't specifically related to disc golf. It was other things going on in my life. And then where disc golf was such an important, or is such an important part of my life, then not being able to do very well, and having, you know, more of the pressure of, well, this is what I'm doing for my life, and I'm not succeeding, and I don't feel like I belong here, and I'm finishing last in all of these events, and I'm sucking, and, you know, and I'm having all these trolls and terrible people tell me, oh, you suck and you're not in. And I don't really care about them. They can say whatever they want, you know. That's totally fine. But still, it's in your own mind sometimes, because like, I know how I'm doing, I know what I'm capable of, and I know how I'm doing. So that was definitely, it wasn't a source of any encouragement, let's say that. It was more of a source of discouragement, and a source of frustration, and a source of just like, what's going on, you know? How can I what can I do? You know, like, I'm doing everything I know that I can do. I'm practicing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and it's still, you know, not coming together. And I think a part of what I needed was, I just needed time. I just needed a little bit of time to allow my body to even get stronger, because even though I thought I had gotten close to 100%, I think I'm recognizing even now I'm still not back to as strong as what I was before all of this happened, you know. um which is which is difficult in some ways, but then also good to recognize and sort of be okay with. And that's what a lot of this last couple years has been, you know, to me, because a lot of people are like, oh, like, you have so many reasons like why things aren't working out, like, you don't need to be upset. Well, that's not just not realistic, you know. Like,
Yep.
I realize that, but at the same time, when you are doing something over and over and over, and that is your life, not doing well at it, even if you have good reasons for not doing well at it, is still very difficult and painful at times, and challenging and depressing and sad, you know. It's and frustrating, and there's just so many things that go along with um anything like this, you know. And I'm not the only one who's experienced something like this. There's many people that have experienced things like this, just maybe not as extreme as something like cancer or an endometriosis or whatever it is, you know. But even something like um having an injury, you know, that takes you out, and then you go, yeah, like Daryl. And Daryl has definitely been through plenty enough. He knows exactly, like, he's had enough health problems to cover just about everybody in the disc golf community. So
Well, I was talking
so
about that one little spot on my hand. It's so annoying, but
yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
like what you went through there. But it's just, yeah.
Yeah, but you've had plenty of so you definitely understand the struggle of, like, health, just health issues in general, and how that can impact play. And so anybody who has like anything that gets in the way, it could even not be your own body failing you or getting an injury. It could be a situation with a family member or a friend or a child or anything, anything that takes something that you need from the game, whether that be physically, mentally, emotionally. That can be really challenging. And another part of it is, like, people say this and sometimes it's hard to believe, like, disc golf is 85-95% mental. It is. It really is. It's
Yeah.
such a huge part. It's such a huge part of the game. Like, yes, you do have to have a certain level of, physical abilities. And if you have injuries, then, it doesn't matter how much mental game you have, you're not going to be able to do what you need to do. But at a certain point, it's all mental, and there were definitely a lot of mental game aspects that came into play for me last year that I really tried to work through and continued to work through. And it was like it was almost at times like my work was in vain. Like I kept working at it, I kept working at it, I kept trying, and I couldn't figure it out. Like I was being very active about it. I was trying to be realistic and also kind to myself in those moments, and like, hey, this makes sense. So I know this is kind of like melding the 2024 recap with the depression and mental game aspect and everything. And I think that's totally fine because they're very related.
Yep.
So that happened. And then afterwards, I kind of wanted to play Paw Paw in West Virginia. And I was like, I really like don't, I just, once you're at a certain point of defeat, in your life. Like, and I was about as defeated as you could be. Here I had started this journey kind of in 2022, where as an AM, I traveled the country. And then 2023 was my year to break into the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And then I get cancer and endometriosis. And then I get a Lyme disease less than a year later. And all of these things are happening. And it's just insane. And I had already had a bunch of health issues all of my life. So it's not like this is new to me, but this was like everything at once coming in and kind of like stopping the direction that I'm going and what I'm trying to do. And so, as you can imagine, that was, a lot. And
Yes.
so, 2023 comes around and I have my first Disc Golf Pro Tour event, which was the Las Vegas Challenge. And then I go to play the Memorial. I played that one in FA1, I think. And then I drive back to Texas, fly to Florida, play my first throw down the mountain, which was what I played this last weekend, but that was my first one and only one before this past weekend in FA1. There were 16 competitors, won that. That was really awesome. Flew back to Texas, did open at Austin and Texas State. So then at that point, I've done 3 Disc Golf Pro Tour events, drive all the way back to Florida, am sick on the way. And then that's when I go to the urgent care. And that's where I figure out I probably have cancer. And I had a ton of pain. And I also found out I had a huge tumor growing on my ovary, essentially, is what it ended up being. So all of these things happening. 2023 was my year to come out. I was progressing. I was doing well. I had all of the tools. I had everything in my bag. I was ready to go. And then bam, cancer, like, sorry, you can't do anything. And I'm in like extreme pain too. And I still try to play for another couple. I think I still try to play for another like month or so ish. And it was brutal because I played a Silver Series event, and it was actually the best event that I did so far, probably on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I think I got like 28th place out of like 40 something or 50 people. So that was really cool. But like one of those nights, I was with my mom and I like woke up. I was in so much pain. I was just crying, and I don't cry like very often. I have a pretty high pain tolerance. And so I'm in like so much pain. And then I go back to the course, and I'm just like, a part of why I think I did so well that time was just because I was like, man, I don't even like, there's no pressure at all. I am in so much, like, I've been in so much pain, and if I do terribly here, like, it really, I'm just gonna have fun and do the best, do the best I can, have a good time. And that sort of took off a lot of the pressure of the competition, all of that stuff. So it went really well. So there's definitely something to be said for, mental game and things like that, even if you're not doing well physically. Um, so that happens, then I have the surgery and all that stuff, and I was bedridden for a lot of 2023, and then 2024 comes around and I'm like, okay, now we'll get our backhand back, all of that stuff. And it looked promising at the beginning, and I started to feel really good about my backhand. And hadn't played very many tournaments at that point. We'd had the Texas swing, and US Women's was in Texas. Went back to Florida, and then headed for the second swing, if you will, or like break, which was started with Jonesboro. And then that's where I got the Lyme disease, and it like completely knocked me out. It took everything, that any progress I had made on my backhand was completely gone. Which obviously was very discouraging, and I was extremely sick. I did not feel well. Sorry, did you have something to say?
No, because I remember we talked about this last year. Because I remember right before you got Lyme disease, because if I'm not mistaken, it was right before Nashville, and
Yeah.
you were
Said
like,
Jonesboro.
yeah, and you were talking about how good you were feeling, how you're like, I'm starting to get that back, and I
Yeah.
remember the frustration that you had, because it's like, seriously, now something else
Yeah.
when you got diagnosed with Lyme. So I didn't mean to
I was
interrupt.
more,
I
yeah,
didn't want
no,
to
you're
mention.
good. I was more upset about getting Lyme than I was
Mhm.
about getting cancer, because it was like, I've already been so knocked down. Like, it's like I'm already down, and now you're going to knock me while I'm down. Like, you're going to hit me and kick me while I'm down. And
Mhm.
so, and like, just when I'm starting to see some positive outcomes from like the work that I'm putting in and trying to build this back up. So that was really discouraging in itself. And I think every moment that happened, I handled fairly well. I took each moment by itself. I was like, okay, how can I deal with this as best I can? This is what happened, so I want to make the best of it. Because what a lot of people do in terrible situations, understandably, is that they look at it and they imagine all of the other ways that this could have gone. Like, why did I have to get cancer? Why did I get Lyme disease? Why did this happen? Why did I lose my, there's always the why. And we are very imaginative and creative as human beings, so we can easily imagine a world and a reality that is so much better than the one that we have, or
That's
the things that are
absolutely.
happening. But the reality is that this is your life. This is what you have. This is what you're given. So the best and most healthy thing that we can do as individuals is to completely accept that. Not necessarily think it's good. Not necessarily, you don't want to lie to yourself and say, "Oh, this is fantastic. I just got cancer. Look at me. La di da." No, it does matter, and it is terrible, and it is awful, and that does matter. But there's a difference between being like, oh, this doesn't matter, this is fine, this just happens, and fully accepting what's happened, and then saying, where can I go from here? Like, my life's not over. Where am I going next? What's the next step? What can I do? And and taking your life into your own hands, because if you just say, hey, this is terrible, I can't do anything about this, I've just been dealt a terrible hand, then guess what? There is nothing you can do. Nothing. There's nothing, no way you can make it better, no way you can help your situation. But if you take that and take responsibility and accountability for your own life and say, hey, I didn't do this, this isn't my fault, but I can choose how I'm going to move forward with this. And we're still going to at times imagine what could be better about our lives and what could be different. Like, that's just that's our brains working. That's
Yep.
okay. But at the same time, we can hold both things. We can understand, yeah, in the background, I know this could be better, but also this is the life I have and I'm happy with that. And I can make a good life from this. Like I can have a good life from the life that I am given, from the things that are thrown my way that I have zero control over. I don't have any control over that, but I do have control where I take myself, my thoughts, my mind from there, whether I choose to just curl up in a ball and say, it's no use, this is horrible, or whether I say, hey, what can I do to make today a little bit better? What can I do in order to grow myself, to learn, to expand, to become more healthy, to help have better boundaries for myself, to learn, have better relationships, like all to love myself better, because that was one very important thing that I had to learn a few years back, because I did a terrible job of loving myself. And that's super crucial in order to have good relationships with other people, is to be able to realize, hey, I matter too.
Yep.
um if you're religious, then the Bible says love your neighbor as yourself. There's a reason why it says that, because we need to be able to love and take care of ourselves. I mean, if we didn't feed ourselves every day, we'd die. We need certain things we need to care about and love ourselves, just as it's just important to do that in order to be able to love and care for other people. So I know that was a lot, but I think it's we've sort of gotten to a point too where it's gone over a lot of different things over the last few years since I started this journey. And some of you have been with me the entire time. Some of you have just learned of me maybe this year or a year ago or something. So you haven't been through the whole journey, but it's not very often that I talk about all of the pieces. So I felt that it was going into the 2025 season, I felt like it was really important and valuable to kind of give more of a timeline of what has happened over the last few years and kind of how that's impacted my life and some of what I've done to maintain a healthy life, or as healthy as possible. So I would also like to talk a little bit more specifically about the depression. So it sort of came on quickly. I didn't really, I mean, not exactly quickly. It was more of like a surprise. So something had happened, and then it was pretty discouraging, like a slightly traumatic, like, and I was kind of upset with it, but I felt like in the moment I dealt with it pretty well. I did what I could with it. And then uh I think over time, with traveling all over the place, not really having a lot of time, for myself. I tried to give myself as much time as possible, but just a lot of, it's always a lot of different factors. And then not doing well in disc golf really didn't help, because that's kind of what my direction, aim in life sort of is. So not not really having any encouragement from that aspect of my life. And then I think, like, a month or so in, I sort of realized, like, yeah, I'm pretty depressed. And it sort of hit me, and I'm like, okay, this is what it is. It's okay. um but it was very different from any other time I've been depressed. I haven't been depressed that many times in my life. The first time was for like 5 years, and that was in grad school. And there were reasons for that. I think I've even brought it up before. I don't really care mentioning it. Maybe some people are uncomfortable with it, but I was sexually assaulted in grad school, and that led into my first real depression, and I was depressed for like 5 years. So that was really rough. And then I had like a couple other minor ones like in between, but this was really the first major depression since that 5-year depression, which was much worse, and this one, where I had grown a lot emotionally and mentally, and learned a lot of super valuable lessons. Even going into this depression, I had a lot of hope that I had never had before. Like, I knew even from the beginning hey, this isn't going to last forever. Like, yes, it sucks in this moment, and being okay with that. Essentially, just having a lot of grace for myself, being like, it is okay that I cannot really do anything today. You know, I think it's difficult for people who've never been depressed to like understand that, but it is how you feel. You know, it's kind of like, if you want to think of it in terms of a physical thing, then it's like all of your energy, like say you have this much energy, this much of it is used on depression every day. So all
Yep.
you have is this tiny, 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 tiny little bit of energy to give to anything else. And you feel overwhelmed because guess what? Life doesn't stop.
Yep.
You still have all of the things. You still have all of the people. You have the responsibilities. You have all that stuff. And so that's why depression is a part of why it's so terrible, because you just don't have the energy. You don't have the, and you'd have zero motivation. You know, normally, I mean, people even without depression struggle with motivation. That's a very common thing. You know, a lot of times you just have to do something in order to get motivation.
Yes.
But when you're depressed, it's like you can't even make yourself do the most simple of things, the most basic of things. It's like climbing, I always say it's like climbing Mount Everest just to like get up out of bed. So going through that and being okay in those moments, you know, not being critical of myself, not saying, oh man, what a, you know, what a loser. I can't even get out of bed. You know, I can't do this. I can't do that. The things that I want to do. So just having a lot of grace and a lot of patience is a super important thing when you're in depression. And then just doing what you can in a day and being happy with whatever that is.
Mhm.
And on top of that, so all of those things, having the grace. And then the other thing that really, really helped me. So this is all like my experience. I'm kind of sharing some of it with you, and there's a lot more to it, but these are some of the base core things. And the other thing was, I've already mentioned it some, was having that hope throughout all of it, because like I had already been through the depression. I knew how it went. And I mean, you know, a lot of people that have been through depression before, they're not able to have hope the next time they have it or whatever. But I just, even in the moments where it was like very terrible in that moment, I was still able to know for a fact, hey, this is not going to last forever. I am going to feel better, and that's okay. And allowing it to take its course, because like afterwards, and I even said this when I was in the depression, I told people, I was like, you know, I really thought that it would have been over by now. You know, I didn't think that it would have lasted that long. In fact, I didn't even think that I would have gotten depressed like that again, because I thought, oh well, I've, you know, worked through all of these things and I've become very healthy emotionally and mentally, and I don't allow, you know, people on social media to bother me, or you know, all of these different things that I feel like I'm very healthy in. But it still came and it got me, and it did. And that's okay. And so even as I realized at a certain point, it's like, well, this is just going to be here as long as it's going to be here, and I'm here for it, and I'm going to do the best I can. And when it's, you know, I'll be super happy when it's over. So thankfully it did start to let off in, I think it was December, like the beginning of December of last year. And it kind of slowly started lifting. I was a little apprehensive about it. I'm like, okay, is this really happening? Because I don't want to be like, it's gone. And then, you know, it wasn't actually gone, because depression's sneaky.
Yes.
And
Yes.
but I was very excited about it as well. And I know Daryl remembers some about it too, because I'm sure I like mentioned it, and I've even mentioned it some on social media. I've never like made it a secret. It's not something that I feel like I need to necessarily be posting about every day. And another thing about depression is that when you're depressed, it's harder. Like when you can have a day where you feel like really good in one moment and then really awful in the next moment. So when you're in those moments of feeling awful, you don't want to post anything or take any time to put something up on social media. That's just not a thing that you want to. That's not a thing that most actually truly depressed people want to do. So, and it can also seem fake sometimes, you know, because you
Mhm.
could see a post of mine where I'm genuinely having a good time and I'm happy one day, and then I'm really not doing well later, and it could seem like, man, she seems like she's like really happy. It's no, that's because I actually was feeling really good and having a genuinely good time in that moment. And then a little bit later I'm feeling like the world was ending. So it's really a terrible thing. Depression is very serious, and I wish more people would talk about it more openly and get more help with it. I think therapy is amazing. Finding a good fit with therapy, if you can, that's a great thing. I go to therapy. I actually saw my therapist today. She's amazing. um, and you can really get a lot of help from a person. I've also been with someone who I didn't like very much, and I switched. So there's that too. So don't give up. If you are, one thing I just want to say is, if you are in depression right now, it's okay. Allow yourself to not be okay and to not be successful in terms of your version of what success is. And it will end, at some point it will end, but give yourself like that space. So there's a lot of different things to go in with that, but I was so excited when I started to get out of it. And and again, motivation isn't something that everyone has. Like, I've never been a person that's felt like, oh, I'm super motivated all the time. I'm not. I just have things I want to do, and then sometimes I start doing it, and then I get more motivation after I start.
Yep.
And actually, a lot of people have talked about that in different books, about just do something and then the motivation will follow. It's very rare that you feel super motivated for something and then you get to do it. So sometimes you just have to do the thing. So yeah, I would say, like, 2024, recap of that, was kind of a miserable year for me in a lot of ways. Certain things were really good. I got married at the beginning of last year, and we certainly had our normal marital things to work through and everything, but we really grew a lot and learned a lot of things. So there were definitely a lot of good things from that. I met some new amazing people, got to experience some really cool things, but there was definitely this very this, for a lot, like half of the year or more, there was this depression that was pretty strong, and really made life difficult, and especially made life difficult even mentally, because it's kind of like a tease at times, because you're like, you want to have fun, you want to have a good time, but then it's just like it's like it won't allow you to, even at times. So it's sort of, uh, depression is pretty nasty, and I think in many ways is more serious than a lot of the physical issues that people have. Like, even, I mean, I think depression can be worse than cancer, and worse than, and I can say that because I've had cancer, so, like, uh depression is a cancer. It is, and it's like, it's something to work through and get through. So I wanted to talk about that because I've been through it multiple times. I've grown, I've worked on myself, and I know, and it's something I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about, like, human behaviors, and like encouraging other people in this sort of thing if that's what they're going through. No, I'm not like a professional in it or anything, but I think I can share my own experiences and what I've learned, and kind of what I've gone through in some of this. And if there's ever any disagreements, then please feel free to, point those out, or tell me what you think. So 2024, kind of a miserable, rough year, and I was extremely excited when the year was over. I got really sick for Christmas and around Christmas time, but that was actually when I had started to get out of the depression. So on one hand, I'm like very excited because I can tell I'm starting to get out of it. And then this really nasty, nasty sickness hits me and is with me for a couple weeks. And then I get sick again, like in January or February. And then the new year happens. And like right before the new year, I'm kind of starting to feel a little bit better. I'm not like, I wasn't even able to sleep hardly because I was just coughing and coughing and coughing all the time. And then the new year came, and it was like, it really felt like more of a new year than any year ever before in my entire life. Like, it was like everything about this is completely different from the year before. Like, it is truly a new year, new beginning, new everything. And I'm not one to like make New Year's resolutions or anything, so I didn't really have a New Year's resolution other than just the general, like, hey, I want to work out more, type of thing, which I have done some. I've not been great at it. I've definitely been way better at putting every day,
Yeah, you're
um,
rowing a lot, aren't you?
but yeah. Well, we just got that. And I have only rowed like 3 times, I think. But
Mhm.
yes, I definitely like the rowing machine.
I
It's really
loved that when I
nice.
was there.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to get like the gym membership and then start rowing at the gym and tell me about it. So we already said that we were gonna do kind of like a workout thing. So
There you go.
so anyway,
Can I say one thing about the
yeah, go ahead.
depression too? One of the things that I've had depression severe at times, but the thing that I have found out the most is you could just be doing everyday things, you feel fine, and the tiniest little thing will set you right back in it. And it's
Yep.
better. I mean, like for me, it's so much better now because I now recognize when it's happening. Because before I would just curl up in a cocoon and just block everything off, and now I've learned to battle with it a lot better and see it
Yeah.
before it gets there and it really gets in too deep. So that's just one thing
Yeah.
I just put out there.
Yeah, like I think kind of what you're mentioning is like acceptance. You know, a part of
Mhm.
it is accepting what it is that's happening and then being, in a sense, okay with it. You know, not like thinking it's good, but realizing, hey, this is what is happening and there's really not much I can do about it. So, and the act of that helps because then you're not fighting with yourself, you know, with your own mind and your own body. You're being like, okay, this is what's happening. So,
Yeah.
let's do the best we can with it and not beat myself up for the fact that I'm depressed. Because a lot of people, you know, they're depressed and then people don't like them as much because they're not as much fun and they're not, you know, and they're downer and whatever. So that makes things worse. And then on top of that,
Mhm.
you're beating yourself up for what they're thinking and what you're thinking. You're like, yeah, I am a terrible person. Why am I feeling so terrible and miserable all the time? Why can't I do the most basic, the most simple of things? Like, wow, it and it is it's very discouraging and it's hard
Mhm.
not to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just accepting it and being like, this is okay is one of the most important steps, I think, in getting through depression in a semi-healthy way, because we can be depressed and get through depression in a healthy way.
Yep. Totally agree. Totally agree. I mean,
Yeah.
when you
So
first
anyway,
happened,
I'm not going to get much farther in this because I do want us to kind of try
yes,
to
yeah,
keep it at
just go,
about
just
an
go to the next
hour.
step.
But what I'll plan for this is I'll just start going into a little bit of just this year, and then we'll try to end it at like in the next 10 minutes or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, but so going into 2025, just completely new, completely different. Still having, I've had a lot of back and forth with my backhand. But even today when I was out throwing, there were moments where I was like, wow, that felt so perfect, so good. You know, it was like exactly, I knew that the form was exactly how I needed to be. And then I'd throw another shot and it would be like, oh, that was kind of gross. But, you know, but I could feel it and I could sense it. And I was like, this is what I'm looking for. Like, this is what I'm going for. So I've still very much been like, that's been kind of my kryptonite a little bit with disc golf lately, is my backhand and trying to get back to that. But I've had a lot of moments where it's been like, yeah, this is really good, I'm getting this. So like this past weekend at the tournament, round one, backhand felt great, awesome, um going really well. So backhand and forehand were great. Like everything was coming together. Just got a little unlucky with some stuff and some stupid bogeys that shouldn't have happened, but it was pretty good round. Then the next day, the disc felt foreign in my hand. I was like, what is this plastic that is in my hand? I, I don't know. It doesn't, it feels so weird. And I was like, I want to
Showman,
get a grip. Yeah.
Showman Park.
Ugh, like I couldn't even find a way to hold it right. It is so bizarre. And that's happened to me before, but it was just so intense. I was like, this is weird. So at a certain point, so on hole two is where the big thing happened. I like grip locked like crazy, went straight off to the right and I actually ended up getting a double bogey on that hole, I think. And so that obviously just knocked out my confidence. And so then eventually I just had to be like, okay, I'm not going to throw any drivers anymore. So I just switched to backhand throwing, mostly just like mid ranges and putters, and then flicking for more distance. So I was able to do that and kind of combat it. So there's a lot of different things that, I'm working through trying to figure out with my backhand. And it's not just about figuring it out, because there's a difference between figuring out my backhand and then translating that to a tournament round consistently, because I can even have one tournament round that's amazing and great, and then the next tournament round where it's like, okay, this isn't feeling quite right. So really getting to a point to where that's so solidified in my mind and in my muscle memory that I no longer am doing this silly stuff with the backhands where it's like messing up. So that's some work to do for 2025, and something that was pretty awful for 2024 in a lot of different ways, and in a lot of different moments. So yeah, I don't know exactly how to wrap it up, but pretty much just saying, like, I'm very, very excited about this year. And it's going to be very different from the last 2 years, just as the last 2 years have been very different from the year prior to that. And some of it is going to be dependent on how things go. Like, if I start doing a lot better, then I'll start considering more things. I do plan on doing some Disc Golf Pro Tour events this year. I plan on traveling some. Just it's not going to be as much, and there's also more of a financial consideration. There was last year as well, but I feel like even more so this year, there's more of a financial burden and consideration towards playing events. And especially Disc Golf Pro Tour events are like $375 just for the entry fees for me to play. Like, that's not including gas, it's not including lodging. We try to find like a place to stay, but that can be difficult too, because if you find a place, even if the person is like great, sometimes it's just you're just not as comfortable not at home, so it can make it difficult when you don't have like an RV or something that you're staying in. There's no consistency, so it's a lot of change, and that can be hard to regulate. So this year is gonna be very dependent on like making sure I'm doing a good job of taking care of myself, which was also very important last year. But even doing a better job of that than what I've done any other time. Really just doing what I need for myself. Like, I know a lot of people don't know this, but I am an introvert, and I love people. I love spending time with people, but in order to recharge, I need to be by myself. I need to be alone. And one of the ways I do that is social media. So a lot of people see like, oh wow, she has like so many stories. Well, that's my time to decompress. That's my time where I can do something that I don't really have to think about at all. I can just be creative. I can edit this, I can fix this, I can put this together, and it's just fun for me, and it's good, and it's not something that requires much brain power at all or thinking. I can just do it.
Mhm.
So a lot of things. There are a few tournaments I'm definitely going to play, and I'll go into more of those in our next podcast. But I am planning on doing AM Worlds. I'm planning on doing US Women's, both in FA1 again this year. A lot of people have asked me like, oh, are you planning on accepting cash this year? Well, that's really hard for me to know when I have no clue how I'm going to be doing. Like, I would have thought 2 years ago I would have started accepting cash at the end of the year, and I would have if things would have gone the way that they were, in the projection of how they were going. And it wasn't even that I think I had a unreasonable view of my capabilities. It's just that everything I was doing was completely like my feet were cut out from under me, so I didn't really have any option other than to just do the best I could. So, and then that was a part of the disappointment from last year too, because again, I thought like a couple years ago, well, getting to 900 rated shouldn't be that hard. Like I was on my way there. I was well on my way there. I was feeling good about it, and I was only getting better and more confident in the different areas of my game. And I have a lot in my bag in terms of what I'm capable of doing. So it was really up from there, but it wasn't, and that's okay. Like, that didn't happen. That's okay. And so, the answer to the question of, am I going to accept cash this year? Maybe I will. Maybe
That's
I won't. I'm not sure. It's really going to be dependent on how things go, how my rate, where my rating goes, where my play is going, you know, because even where my rating is very different from where I'm at, you know, because I could maybe even get to the point to where I'm doing fantastic and I'm like a solid 900 over 900 rated, but my rating is still like way back here, and that also impacts sponsorships and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different factors to consider. One thing I do promise is that I will always do my best not to sandbag in a tournament. And so if I am playing an FA1, then it'll be generally be because of another person, because I know that they're rated high and we're doing it together, or because the layout is better, something like that. There's actually a tournament that's coming up that I'm like, oh, these 3 tournaments are way better, and I have a person that's like rated a similar level or similar skill level as me, so we're both going to play FA1. Or it's like a big huge A tier, and you know, it makes sense. Like my rating is, I mean, my rating is only 870 and it just went up 3 points, so I'm really not like, I'm not solidly FPO rating wise by any means. So definitely still very much within the realm of playing FA1 in bigger tournaments. So, but I'll still play a lot of FPO. So there is going to be FPO, and I do have various Disc Golf Pro Tour events that I plan on playing. I would have played the Supreme Flight Open a couple weekends ago, but I had a family member's wedding to go to, so wasn't able to. I actually signed up for it and had to drop it, so wasn't able to do that. Anyway, I'll go into more details about the plan for 2025, but that's kind of a very brief overview, and I will pretty much end it with that unless we have like more questions or Daryl has some specific questions or additions to what I've said.
I have a very specific question. 1 year ago today, the beginning of Acebabie's disc golf adventure started.
Yeah.
How that affected yourself over the course of 1 year? Yeah, and today is the anniversary of the beginning of this. And I also told her this: the first podcast we had, the 1 year anniversary will be like 3 years from now, because it was on
the 29th.
So look forward to 3 years from now where we will have our first anniversary for that.
Yes.
But tell us about the 1 year of doing this podcast.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So first of all, we should have mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast.
Yes, we should have.
It literally slipped my mind, even though it's in the title. So I guess most people probably know. I think it's in the title, right?
I think so.
Think so? Okay, yeah. Who knows? It's been a busy few weeks. All right. So yeah, it's been really great. I'm really glad that we did this. It was definitely like a challenge adding that in, and then also especially having such a rough year and still doing this, but it gave me a space to like talk about some of what was going on, which was really good. And it even helped me at times gain more perspective about what I was going through, because I had to face it and talk about it, you know. As human beings, we're pretty terrible at just keeping things in our mind and gaining as much, like a lot of perspective. We can gain some perspective, but as human beings, we gain so much more perspective when we get it out, when we speak it out loud. Even if we were to just speak it out loud to ourselves, it would literally help more than just thinking it in our minds, which doesn't seem to make sense, but that is the way that it works scientifically. So yeah, I remember there were some times like before the podcast, I would just be like so defeated and like, oh man, like I feel so tired and drained and exhausted and I'm depressed and all of these things. And then I would get on the podcast and I would start talking. It would kind of give me a little bit of energy and give me a little bit of that pep, you know, just from doing it and talking about the things. And there were some times I was maybe a little bit more discouraged about it, but I would say that was not the usual. The usual was that it helped me, and it gave me perspective. It gave me some of an outlet even to process some of those things that I was going through, because I was able to talk about it some on here, even if I didn't always know exactly how to do that, you know, at the time. And it's been awesome to not only do this, but then also have someone who can set up most of it. Like, normally I've made the thumbnail just because I want to most of the time,
Yes.
because I have all the pictures, and I'm just a nerd like that, and very artsy. But it's been nice to not have to do, I don't have to make the main post about it. I'm not setting this up. Like, you're doing all of that legwork, which thank you so much. And that's really helped. So yeah, I think it's awesome. And I'd also love to hear your thoughts of the Ace Babies adventure over this past year, and what it's meant to you, and the journey
Well,
from
first
your
off,
perspective.
you had to literally text me to wake me up because I completely forgot I was watching TV, took a nap, and next thing, oh, I got to hurry up. But
Yeah, so I sent you like an outline, and then I was like,
yes,
hey, Daryl, I need the link.
and then I kind of wake up, I look like, why are all these messages? But anyway,
It's a good thing you woke up.
I remember when we had our first podcast, our Disc Golf Chat podcast. And at the end of the podcast, I was like, she's pretty interesting. I think she's got a good story. And I think this would be really, really interesting to kind of follow the journey of someone. And afterwards, I was like, I think we could do this. And I think it'd be very good. And I messaged you about it, and you had things to do. And you said, you're like, let me think about it. And we talked to Andy and stuff about it. And then a few days later, you messaged back, say, "Yeah, I think we should try this."
Yeah, I think even initially when you first said it, I was very much like, yeah, I think this would be a really good idea. Because
Mm-hmm.
a part of what would stop me from doing a podcast myself at the time was just all the legwork stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
since now you were like, hey, I'll do this, but obviously it matters, like the relationship and the partnership of doing something
Right.
together with someone. But I think, yeah, I think it's been really good.
And then when and you now here's the thing: you say that I set up everything, but you give me an outline for just about everyone we've done, which it helps me out immensely because there's so many times it's just like, what question do I ask now? But it's been phenomenal for me. I really enjoy the time that we do these because I mean, it's fun for me. I enjoy it, and I get to hear your stories. And like I told people, the stories of being inside the ropes that we don't always hear, but not only what we have gotten that I did not expect is the stories outside the rope from event to event. How much it is to not just driving from an event, the cost of it, the mental side of it. Just it's not. People just think, "Are you just going to play disc golf? You get in a car and you drive to the next place.
Yeah,
You're throwing discs." I'm like,
the dream.
yeah, yeah. It's like I think any pro sport where they're traveling over and over. People just think, "Oh, it's so glorious." It's like it's not always. It's not always rainbows and sunshine.
It's not. It's not a lot of the time, but there's
Yeah.
still a lot of really good about it. I think the thing
Yes.
that cracks me up the most is when people make the comment like, "Oh man, it's so awesome that you get to do this, that you're able to do this." And
Right.
I'm like, technically anybody would pretty much be able to do what I'm doing. It's just
Mhm.
you're not brave enough to do it. So don't say like, "Oh, no, I make sacrifices every single day choosing this." I'm also
Yep.
saying no to a lot of other things. Like, I'm a chemical engineer. I have a master's, almost a PhD in chemical engineering. I could be working in that field, making a ton of money if I wanted to, or doing a million other things. Like, I like doing a lot of different things. So I'm saying no to a bunch of other things by saying yes to disc golf. And it's not just the dream. And it obviously hasn't been for me at times, because I've literally, like, just when I'm trying to do the thing that I want to do, that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stop grad school. I'm going to pursue this. Then what happens? My entire life gets pulled, like my legs get knocked out from under me. So it's, there's a lot to it. Even if you don't go through what I went through, it's not easy. It's not easy in any aspect, and there's a lot of pressure to it too. Even if, if people think like, oh, it doesn't really matter, you're just going playing disc golf. But if that's what your life is, if that's what you're doing, then there is a certain amount of pressure that's going to be associated with that, that's pretty hard, if not impossible, to just get rid of. You can't just be like, well, this just doesn't matter. I know that, like, this is my only source of income, and this is, what I'm doing. I'm raising money and I'm playing disc golf, but it just doesn't matter. Like, that's not reality. Like, it doesn't work that way, for people, unless you genuinely have like loads of money and you can just go on the road and like use up thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of money to play disc golf, which that's pretty much just about nobody on the disc, like, that plays disc golf. I mean, there's maybe a couple people, but I doubt. I don't. Yeah, not very many.
Now, the biggest thing that I have gotten from this, and I say this in all sincerity, is our friendship. Over the course of the past year, we have become very good friends. I got to come, and I still hate that you can do that. I can do that. But, getting to come down, hang out with you and Andy, and find out me and Andy are we're BFFs. Andy's my guy.
I'm happy for you guys.
and my man can throw down in the kitchen. Oh my goodness. I did lose 3 pounds while I was down there, by the way. I told you I was going to check that. I did lose weight.
There you go. And you ate well. You ate very well.
Yes, I ate well, and the exercise I got, it was awesome. But again, I mean, the biggest thing is the friendship that we got. The podcast has been awesome, but the friendship means so much more. So
as it should be.
And
yes, you too, ditto.
And the 2025 Florida tour, I've been uploading some of our play. I didn't play well. I didn't, but we'll talk about that at a different time.
You played pretty well at Showman's, I think.
No, that's the one I didn't. That was
there was one that you played really well at.
The Sawmill.
Yes, you played really well at Sawmill.
I played really, really well at Sawmill. I mean,
but it's all right. We know you're better.
When people see the video from Showman, they will be like, "Why are you even playing?" I really at multiple times was quitting that day.
Yeah,
I really was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so bad. But
I feel like that's more encouraging to people, though, because that's real life in the day of a disc golfer. Like, you can have the most, in fact, it often happens when you have the most amazing round, then you're going to have one of your worst rounds ever shortly after. And that's usually how it ends up because of the averages.
Yeah, it was.
So like that happens. Yeah. So someone being able to see you struggle through that and be like, hey, this happens. Here a guy is like, he plays really well this day, and then he's not playing so well this day. I mean, it happens.
Yeah. So, but my last 2 rounds were pretty good, but that round at Showman's, oh my gosh, that hurt my soul. But it's good.
Well, we even mentioned it at the end that it was a rough round for you. So,
but all in all, I mean, at the end of the day, I had a great week that week. It was so awesome. So
we were glad you were able to visit. It was a good time. We'll have a 2026 Florida tour for you next year.
Florida tour, yes. And I've already started looking at courses.
Yeah, Comic-Con or whatever you're doing, right?
Yes.
All right. Were there any other questions from other people?
We didn't have any questions from anybody today.
Okay.
Because I mean, everything we posted, people sharing.
Answered everything. We answered all the questions in the world.
So easy.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty great.
Anything else?
Not that I can think of. We did better than normal. It's under an hour and 30, so I'm proud of us.
Yeah. Take that, Andy.
Ha.
All right. We'll try probably next week if that works.
Yep. Let's do it.
Follow us on Instagram, and you will find out when we're having these. You will be able to enter her giveaway, and you cannot come down. That is my place. You can't. You're banned from the state of Florida. And good times.
You might be able to if you could convince Daryl.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
Wow, what a friend. Harsh, tough times.
It's my getaway from Chris.
That's fair.
But anyway, let's wrap it up now.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, just thanks to everyone who listened to this, and definitely, I know a lot of things that aren't directly disc golf related, but it is very significant and important, and I appreciate you following along and listening, and also following my journey too. I really appreciate that.
Yep. And that's all we got. And you guys have an incredible day.